Hello and welcome to the Scarlet Watch, Bewitched by WandaVision. We're from the Comic Crush. I'm Paul. I'm here as always with Liz.
Hello.
How you doing, Liz? You good?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh yeah. Superb. Freezing here in England, which I think is pretty much the same where you are.
It is.
Yeah, very cold right now. But it's great to see you as always. We are going to talk about the latest episode 6 of WandaVision. Which is on Disney Plus now. By now, I'm sure you guys know how we do it. We're just going to run through the episode and talk about all the possibilities that we think are happening or could be happening or could happen in the show. So Liz, packed episode again this week. So much happening. Probably, I think the best episode so far. It seems to get better and better every week.
I would agree with that. Yeah. I mean, and it just keeps ramping it up and, sort of rapidly, throwing answers at you at the same time as more mysteries.
Yeah. Loads of things getting answered, but also not really, keeping it vague, keeping it mysterious as always. Now, this is an episode that I feel that we're all kind of waiting for because it was one of the episodes that were featured heavily in all the trailers. Which was the Halloween episode. So
right.
we kind of get to see Wanda and Vision and indeed Pietro in kind of comics accurate sort of cosplay 1968 style.
Well, just like really low rent versions of their original costumes, basically, which I loved. I thought that they were so good. Like whoever did the costume design for the show just, deserves all the awards because, they were just like these perfect little, sort of homemade bargain bin sort of costumes. But, you could immediately identify, which costumes they are, the kind of original Kirby costumes for Vision and Scarlet Witch Vision and Quicksilver at least. I mean, I loved that. Pietro's was especially great. Pietro and Tommy's were just with the hair and everything. I was cracking up.
They really reminded me of the early, I don't know if you've ever seen cosplay at the very early versions of Comic-Con and things like that. But that's what they really reminded me of.
Right, someone with a sewing machine, nobody with you see people with the cosplay skills now to literally recreate or surpass even whatever the actors would have been wearing. Whereas early cosplay was very that, like a spandex sort of home knitted outfit, just like those, which I thought those were so great.
Yeah, I loved it. But yeah, we reach this Halloween episode, which kind of answers the question that Vision had last week, where are all the children? And this week we see children. But, still sinister as ever.
And we're sort of given at least something of an answer in the form of a question from Pietro, so basically you've just kind of been keeping them asleep or something, to kind of have the least, emotional impact on them as possible, so they just get to kind of come out, for something fun like this. But otherwise, they're kind of theoretically unaware of what's happening to them.
And also, I guess the assumption is that the more people that are conscious and running around inside Westview, the more power it's going to take from Wanda to keep them docile. Although we get kind of
a pretty dark answer for that as well, yeah.
But she does seem to have been keeping sections of the neighborhood hidden. But this week we get to go out and we get to see this sort of 90s version. Did you love the 90s credits?
I love the 90s, which funnily enough was really based on more of a naughties show, Malcolm in the Middle, which I don't think was actually around until 2000 or something like that. So, but the vibe was still very 90s, so I guess just maybe kind of trying to roll those two things into one, possibly.
Yeah, sure. And I like the kind of almost to camera asides that the kids are running around and doing, which is really
Which is
interesting.
very Malcolm in the Middle, you know.
Yeah, but also it speaks to a sense that maybe on a meta level the kids know they're being watched, and not like an audience at home, they're being watched. So,
right.
so
like
their consciousness of the wider situation might be growing, even if they are just a kind of figment of Wanda's imagination or something that she's manifested into life.
Right.
Although I do think that given where Vision came from, his origins, it would strike me that he's actually the one who has the ability to kind of construct a living organism. So I still don't know how much of that is, you know.
Right. I mean, like the origins of the kids are very, you know, it's really been left up in the air as far as the show is concerned. You know, so it's, you know, it's unclear, you know, how much of a hand Wanda really had in their creation, or if it's part of a, you know, deal that she may have inadvertently or consciously made, which is definitely something that I think we'll, you know, kind of talk about as we go along, because, you know, more and more you get the idea, the sense that, you know, yes, Wanda is definitely, you know, we see it with our own eyes this time, that she is responsible for the hex, and, you know, anyone who's subsumed by the hex, you know, that is Wanda's powers. You know, that now 100%, you know, irrefutable that she is in control of that. But, you know, who put that into place for her? Like, who nudged her in that direction? Who showed her what to do? You know, those are questions that I think, you know, more and more, you know, we're going to need answered.
I wonder if it kind of started out as some sort of construct to help her get over Vision's death, and just kind of run riot. And there's a person, as you say, it might be Agnes's husband, but there's someone who she has overpowered, someone that she subdued, and kind of let the construct go completely nuts. It reminds me of like simulation theory, which is something I've been reading about a little bit about recently, which is where you are convinced that you are living in a matrix, basically. Okay. So the world around you is not real. It is a construct of your own mind almost. And it's just each person's construct of the world is different depending on how they perceive, you know. So you have a consciousness, you are real, but everything else is not.
Right.
So it's like this bizarre, it's an actual thing, like it's a real thing. I think there's a guy who's done a documentary on it recently called funny enough, A Glitch in the Matrix, that I'm kind of keen to check out, because that sort of stuff fascinates me. I don't buy into it necessarily, but it does on low key. It kind of fascinates me. But so the world now is kind of, we're seeing the limits of the constructed world, and also we're starting to see Vision push back against Wanda's control, which is still kind of keeping in with things like Bewitched and I Love Lucy and the original kind of sitcom origins of this, because the husband is always the one who is the straight man almost. Do you know what I mean? Whilst the female lead is always the one who has the ability, the power, the snap, you know, whatever it is, and she kind of runs rings around that guy. It happens in I Love Lucy, it happens in Bewitched, it happens in a ton of shows. But here we see the dark side of that, where Vision is really pushing back against these kind of controls and starting to kind of lie to Wanda and voyage out of his boundaries, as it were, that seem to be set up for him, and taking that trip across the town to the is it the east side?
I don't know if they specify. I know it's like the outskirts, basically, like, you know, just as far out as you can go. And as we see, and as like Darcy and Monica and Jimmy saw, on the computer screen, when they actually find out that Hayward has been tracking Vision's energy signature across town. The further out you go, the less animated the people, and the more they seem to be kind of like just frozen in place, and the less Wanda is actually sort of controlling them.
Yeah, or at least at the beginning of the episode. We see the kind of eerie stuff where the husband is putting the pumpkin down and then up again, down and then up, and of course the woman, which we all saw in the trailer, in fact, with the woman with the clothesline who can't quite
right, yeah, and it's quite
kind of single tear
to watch, where she's got a tear coming out of her, like, so Vision is really, he's fully seeing, all the cracks in the facade at this point, and just is venturing out to just see, kind of how deep it runs, and he's very disturbed, and when he gets to the very outskirts, I was very surprised to see Agnes there. Was she trying to leave?
Really weird. I wonder if Agnes is kind of more powerful than we've been given credit for. Again, I'm not so sure about the Agatha Harkness theory now.
Really? I'm totally on board. Like, more than ever, basically.
Okay.
With the witch costume, and even where we've sort of, meet up with her, with Vision, and she sort of acts like a victim, but is she?
Yeah, but she at least seems cognizant of. I don't know. It's like she has a lot more confidence than others. And as you say, what was she doing on the outskirts of town? Was she in fact trying to do what Vision was trying to do, which was investigate what's going on? Because she says she's trying to get to a certain point, like the town square. So there's a lot of interesting kind of stuff simmering under the surface there, and we get, I guess, for the first time in the show, 3 storylines, or at least 3 or 4 separate points of view. So we have what's going on inside the hex, we have what's going on outside, and inside the hex we're following Wanda and Pietro around, and they're having a kind of reunion and talking, and there's some interesting stuff that came out of that.
Oh, a lot. Yeah, really.
So first of all, there's the thing with the accents, which Pietro's has become more kind of New York influenced, I guess. You'd know better than I would about that. But also, there's this idea that Pietro's aware that he's been dead. Like he knows he's died.
Right. Well, everything sort of kind of just rolls off him.
Yeah.
In this very blasé way. And at the same time, Wanda is like, you can see that she's testing him and trying to feel out if this really is her brother, by asking about his accent, by asking him about things that he remembers from childhood, and him not really giving her straight answers, or, sort of saying he doesn't really remember, or just kind of brushing it off. And she sort of, you can see that she kind of wants to be able to have that sibling bond with him and confide in him, and he very much makes himself the sympathetic ear, and really tries to level with her about what's going on, but is he just pumping her for information?
But also, there's a thing where, because the relationship with Vision is deteriorating, she now needs a
confidant,
kind of, someone to bounce off. But is he necessarily going to be that, as you point out? I don't know. And we get one of those kind of spooky not flashbacks, but where she turns away and then turns back to see Pietro in his dead form.
Right. But there's a lot to, there's a lot to take from that too. It's like, okay, well, theoretically then, if she was kind of looking at, her dead brother, wouldn't she have sort of seen the Aaron Taylor Johnson,
Right. And we do get
Which they did
nice
actually, I liked that in the sort of recap bit at the beginning, you actually see Aaron Taylor Johnson just to remind you, like, okay, well, this is like a totally different face that he's wearing, and he totally acknowledges that too in conversation, like, that he makes a passing comment like, oh, my face is different,
But also you get that wonderful little moment which I thought was very funny, where he says something about kicking ass, and she goes,
oh
kick
yeah
ass. I just thought that was great.
It was great. It was great. Like there's nice little things like that,
which of course is the film Aaron Taylor Johnson was in Kick-Ass, adapted from the Mark Millar comic. I also have to point out, as some people, as I often forget, that at that time that comic came out, it was a Marvel comic. It was part of Marvel. The Icon kind of creator-owned, I don't know what you call it, label that Marvel put out. So it was kind of really nice and weird and funny to hear a nod to that. So I don't know.
A weird little Easter egg, like when we were on the outskirts of town with Vision. Did you notice that Ellis Avenue?
No.
Oh, okay, like the street sign that's like right in front of your face.
Oh yeah.
Which I don't know, like it's kind of a funny one because I can't really think of a particular like Scarlet Witch and Vision story from Warren Ellis, but it could have had been a nod to Monica, like because he wrote Next Wave, like
yeah, sure.
I couldn't quite make up what it might be a direct reference to, but it was very glaringly like a Warren Ellis nod.
And Next Wave is definitely worth picking up if anyone hasn't read that. It's a very interesting, funny, excellent series. Although I guess it integrates with the larger Marvel U, but very little to do with Scarlet Witch and Vision, as you've pointed out. But definitely worth picking up. But yeah, and we also now get the demonstration of powers from the kids as well.
Right. Yeah. The kids, like at first, you kind of just see Pietro like zipping around with Tommy, and you wasn't quite sure whether that was his powers at work or just, Uncle Pete, as they're calling him. And, and that's another thing with like Pietro. Okay. I mean, just to backtrack a tiny bit.
Yeah, go for it.
There's a lot of like question marks surrounding Pietro right now. I think he's, he refers to himself as Pete once or twice. Whereas obviously in the X-Men films, he's Peter Maximoff, not Pietro. And, he kind of gets called different things throughout the episode. And yeah, I mean, there's just, and is he either of them? Is he someone else?
This is a good question. Yeah.
He's from what we kind of gathered from last episode, he is not there because of Wanda. She didn't, she seemed as surprised as anybody else when he turned up. And, so he really kind of does have this big question mark surrounding him. Like, could he be the big bad we've kind of been wondering when he was going to show up?
Oh, well, yeah, maybe. I don't know.
He makes some kind of funny comments throughout the episode that if you wanted to look into them, like, he kind of meant, calls the kids demon spawn. He compares New Jersey, like, he says like, oh yeah, this town is charming as hell. And like, little things like that, where it's like, okay, could you be somebody that we've sort of been wondering when they're going to turn up? Like, that's another kind of little possibility.
And still the mystery over the missing witness protection guy, which again we could be Agnes's husband, or maybe it's Pietro.
We don't know. Yeah.
We just don't like it's so kind of weird. I mean, even looking back at Pietro's death, could he have avoided those bullets?
You think?
I don't know. It's so like. But we've also got another couple of storylines that are running. So we have now Monica Woo and Darcy have teamed up and are now pushed out of S.W.O.R.D effectively and cut off from the group, and they're on a mission to try and discover what Hayward is up to.
Right, Hayward, so like total jerk, no,
I don't think he's a good man.
Yeah,
I don't think he's a good guy. Or at least he seems determined to kind of destroy Wanda. Like he wants to go to like the nuclear option as soon as possible and get rid of Wanda.
Right. You have to wonder why he's in such a rush. Like, does he have something to hide? Because obviously he, it seems very likely that he had been experimenting on the Vision's body. He's got this whole project, like the cataract project that, which I thought was kind of a funny little, like, okay, Vision, cataract, where he's obviously observing the Vision within the hex. And it seems like, maybe his rush to get Wanda out of the picture is to cover up some of his own misdeeds, possibly, concerning the Vision.
Yeah.
And he's really nasty to Monica. He makes he sort of says, well, you don't really know anything because you blipped. So what do you know? And made like a dig at her, mother's death, really, like something to do with, maybe it's better off that you weren't here for your mother's death. So it was like really showing his true colors. And somewhere in there, he made like a comment that kind of made me laugh. That was like, which one of you is the sassy best friend to Darcy and Monica?
Although I kind of suspect that that's Woo in a way. Like
well, yeah, exactly.
He's taken on that particular row. Also, what fascinated me there is we get some information about Monica that we haven't had before. Like we get a mystery solved from last week, which is her cells are not degrade. Well, they're kind of degrading, but they're also changing.
Right. So I wonder what's going to happen next.
Yeah, I think we're going to.
I wonder if if that's going to happen on the show. Like I would hope so.
I've got a feeling it'll be one of the kind of final reveals.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I hope this isn't going to turn into a show where, as the thing that blighted a lot of the Netflix shows in their climaxes, you got 4 endings, and they couldn't, find a way to converge those endings together. I don't think it will be. I think the Marvel sort of brain trust is a lot more on the ball about that stuff, and they find a way to give you a decent, satisfying ending and a coda.
I mean, I kind of, expect that they'll do something like what they do with the films and give you like, the little after credit scenes and things like that, so a moment like Monica getting her powers could easily just happen in a, 15-second long after credit scene.
Yeah. And also, I mean, we're looking now at the kind of dissolution of S.W.O.R.D in a way, because we have this wonderful moment where Vision decides he's going to make his escape. He's going to try and get out and see what's beyond Westview, which is a horribly tragic moment. Like it's really kind of, like I was really kind of, oh God, man, the poor guy. So he struggled.
And we also find out, in his little interaction with Agnes, that he doesn't know who the Avengers are. He doesn't know.
Yeah. Avenger. See, again, so much is happening in the episode. I'm actually forgetting bits. Thank you. So what do you think that's about? Why would she? I don't see any reason why she would wipe his. Well, actually, yes, because I guess if she wants to keep him docile, she's got to kind of wipe his memory of the Avengers.
Right. For him to wholesale believe in their marriage and, and this sort of happy sitcom life they've created.
But has she forgotten do you know what I mean? Like, how much is she choosing to remember, or does she remember?
Right. Yeah. Well, you get the idea. She, the conversation she had with Pietro, you know, she seems confused. She kind of confesses to him, I don't really remember what happened. I just remember this feeling of emptiness, this, you know, feeling of being completely alone.
Yeah.
So you get the idea that some of her memories might not be, you know, as clear as they could be either.
So again, that lends weight to the theory that someone else is kind of behind
the strings somehow. Yeah.
Yeah. Now, with Vision's escape, he tries to get through the kind of force field, but he's being pulled back. He's surrounded by Hayward's men, surrounded by the guys from S.W.O.R.D. But instead of helping him, they just kind of watch. Which
and Darcy is like screaming, you know, help him, and you know, she's trying to aid him, and you know, they chain her to a car or something. I think she gets handcuffed to a truck.
Yeah. But that scene was reminiscent for me when he's kind of on the floor and bits of him are flying off. It kind of reminded me of what happened during the snap. You know what I mean? Like it kind of was very reminiscent of that. Not suggesting that the two things are interlinked in any way, but just visually, it kind of reminded me of that. But also, one of the kids is alerted to the fact. Yeah, Billy's alerted to the fact that Dad's in trouble, indicating that he's now kind
coming
of
into his powers.
The powers. That
I mean, you know, like if you're familiar with the characters from the comics, Tommy has the speed powers, and well, you know, anyone watching, etc. Tommy has the speed powers like his uncle Pietro, and Billy has the, you know, the magic using powers like his mom, including you know, he's obviously got some clairvoyance, telepathic powers, and that's how he kind of picks up on his dad's distress.
Yeah, and as Pietro points out to Wanda, you know, we're a long way now from making, you know, changing people's dreams and
making like, you know, little red wobbly gestures. Yeah, whatever he said.
So, that kind of manifests itself in a really decisive way when Wanda, to aid Vision, rather than just going to get him, decides to expand her kind of hex. And I was shocked at how all-consuming they made that scene. Like how big
I mean, and that was like, you know, that was a really definitive moment. Like, you know, we kind of touched on it earlier, you know, where it's like, okay, now you see without question that this is Wanda, this is her doing it. That's, you know, the hex is of her making, whether or not somebody else has sort of pushed her into making it.
So, I mean, now everyone in there is being changed, including Darcy.
Looking forward to seeing, you know, Darcy and the Hex.
Although, in a way, I kind of think that's Darcy's low-key dream, you know, to be inside a sitcom. But it'll be interesting to see what happens to her. And that moment where the guy just leaves her chained to the radiator of the car was horrible. It was just like, oh, you bastard. Yeah. Because you know she's going to get swallowed up by that, and she's going to be the first one to go. But one thing that interested me in the fact that when Vision kind of broke out of the main sort of bulk of the control of the hex, he didn't instantly revert to his dead form.
No, which was
he was still alive.
Mm-hmm.
So
was it because he was kind of half in, half out? Like, you know, it was not super clear.
And also, remember that when Monica went through and then came back, she came out dressed in the clothes she had on.
Yes.
Inside the thing, indicating that. And then, of course, we know they were changed. So could this be a way to bring Vision back to life?
Quite possible,
This is over, maybe. I don't know. Did you see the thing that there was an internet theory the other week about, you know, one of the ways they feel this is going to definitely lead to mutants in the MCU was the wrist flick. I don't know if you've seen it, like the scene where Wanda confronts the guys just outside the barrier and makes them point their guns at each other.
Right.
Or Hayward.
At Hayward, yeah.
As she walks off, she flicks her wrist, and they were like, no, go back and watch this scene with Michael Fassbender, and he does more or less the same gesture in
okay, I don't know. Yeah, well, that's
so it was kind of
I did not.
Everyone kind of leapt on that as like, oh, great mutants. I don't know if we're going to get mutants at the end of this. I have now a different theory about what we're going to get at the end of this.
Okay, you want to share?
Yeah, I can share it. It's just a guess. So we have it's key to the plot as well. So we know there's an aerospace engineer that Monica knows who can help them get back into the hex and not be affected. And that's been teased for a couple of episodes now, and they're on their way to meet him, which is where
yeah.
I've got a feeling that's going to be Reed Richards.
Oh, okay.
I think what we're going to get at the end is a very sort of soft sort of entree into the Fantastic Four.
Oh, wow. Okay, that did not ever cross my mind.
Possibly. I was speaking to our friend.
Do you think it could be Reed Richards in particular?
I've just got a feeling that he's going to be the guy. And, for all we know, could this be the thing that starts the Fantastic Four on the path to becoming better? I don't know. I mean, I'm not sure. I think they'd probably save that for the movie. But also, if they don't, that would be kind of cool, because can you imagine giving the Fantastic Four an origin in a TV show rather than giving them the origin in the movie, and let the movie be a movie the same way that John Watts did with SpiderMan, which was the movie, the origin had already happened. We don't need to see that again. So we're just into the adventure straight away.
Right.
And I wonder if that might be...
I mean, that was done really successfully with Black Panther and Spider-Man, like you said. Both those films, you got soft intros into them, in Civil War, and that was all you needed. I don't know. Because, like, when's CFF supposed to be? Like 2022 or something like that?
They're not really saying. They've said that, yes, we are definitely pursuing a Fantastic Four movie.
But they haven't given it, like, sort of time frame at all?
No. And they sort of debuted a kind of temporary logo for it. But it's as with everything's misdirection with Marvel. Tom Holland, I don't know if you've read this, Tom Holland has now come out and said that Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield will not be appearing in the new Spider-Man.
Really? What?
Yeah.
Okay, I haven't been on the internet enough, apparently, because I did not hear.
As far as he knows, but he also acknowledges that it's entirely possible he hasn't been told.
Right. Well, yeah. Because they are that secretive, and like Tom Holland is notorious for blabbing. He's like a notorious blabber. So, anything secret, they'd probably try and keep out of his hands if they can.
I do find it hilarious that Tom Holland has to have, when he's doing interviews, he has to be accompanied by an older cast member to stop him.
Well, yeah, they're really pretty bad too. Like Mark Ruffalo, is possibly even worse. He broadcast however much of Infinity War or something because he left his phone on in his pocket or something.
Although I wonder how much of that is kind of, and I'm just old and cynical, how much of that is carefully kind of orchestrated. So if we do this and say it's this, I don't trust anything anyone says, really. I'm terrible. But it does kind of, again, open up another set of questions. And, we're coming towards the end now. We're on episode 6 of 9.
I know. And basically we haven't seen anything of Dottie in the last, I don't know, 4 episodes or something. Was that just kind of a red herring, that everybody was suspicious of Dottie? Is she going to come back at all, or is that the last we've seen of her?
I mean, they do it. They do put good, decent actors in one scene appearances all the time.
Yeah.
So that wouldn't surprise me. But at the same time, I think it would be a real waste of Emma Caulfield's talents to only have her in that one scene, because I really like Emma Caulfield in, I mean, obviously I really know her from Buffy, but that her character Anya was like one of the standouts of that show for me.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And her ability to kind of, just flip off those one-liners and actually sometimes be quite a horrible person, but still make you kind of love it. You know what I mean? Like her ability to do that. It was on a par with what James Masters was doing with Spike. I think she was really good at what she did. And it's interesting that here they have her playing, a bit of...
Yeah, like sort of the, like town, like, sort of, like rich bitch sort of,
Yeah. And it's... sorry.
It did seem kind of like they were gonna do something more with her, but she's just kind of disappeared.
Yeah, but 3 episodes to go, 3 more weeks of this show. How will we survive?
I don't know. I know. Okay, but yeah, I still haven't sort of let go of the it's gonna be Mephisto somehow like theory. This week in particular, I was like, okay, the commercial, to me, really kind of cemented that.
So what was it?
The Yo Magic, like the claymation, sort of like Go-Gurt ad, basically.
I think the interesting thing there is in that advert that kid is left to die.
Well, yeah, it was like obviously it's like the darkest of the ads yet, but if you kind of look at what happens in the ad, it's like like the shark comes out of the water, and the shark obviously is this sort of dangerous creature who approaches the little kid who's like left alone on the island, and the thing that he needs the most is food. And so the shark offers him food in the form of the yogurt cup, and
he can't open it,
and then leaves him to it, but he can't open the yogurt, and so he sits on the island and dies. So if you kind of look at that in the context of like, okay, what's a bargain? Like, comes up, gives him the exact thing that he needs the most, but it's like a poison chalice, so he, if you kind of look at that as, all right, well, like a Faustian bargain, basically, like kind of a.
But that makes me wonder: is are the adverts Wanda's kind of cries for help?
Yeah, I mean, what if she was approached and given the thing that she purportedly wanted the most, but it turns out to be tainted, poisoned? In the comics, it's the kids. In the comics, the kids are slivers of Mephisto's soul that he gives, which is the thing that she wants the most and needs the most, but then he reabsorbs them back into himself. So she never really got the thing that she truly wanted the most, but she had to give up something of herself.
Yeah. Okay.
Either way.
And of course that then I assume is making...
Yeah, if you make a bargain with the devil, it's not necessarily going to turn out how you hoped it would. And you're still losing something of yourself in the process.
But I assume that's making Mephisto more powerful as he's kind of reabsorbing these parts. Yeah, because obviously the kids...
And whatever Wanda, has possibly given up of herself to get this, this idyllic little life in the first place, has probably made him more powerful. But who's Mephisto? If there is a Mephisto to be found, is it Pietro? Is it Agnes? Is it Dottie? Is it Ralph? There's, is he, I mean, because I really, at this point, I'm really married to the idea that Agnes is Agatha and Mephisto is somewhere to be found.
Okay. Okay. Right. So I think before the end of the show, in the next couple of weeks, we probably need to have like maybe something for the patrons. We'll have a little catch up on what we think the theories are and what who we think the big bad might be, and a little kind of bet amongst ourselves. I mean, I have no clue because I'm not as clued up on the Marvel U as you are, and sort of so therefore my list of suspects is going to be very narrow. But nonetheless, I'm sure we can conjugate up a couple of theories that will be fun for some of the patrons to take a look at. We'll look at doing that in the next couple of weeks, guys. So we're pretty much at the end, Liz. Thank you very much. I just want to remind people you can follow us at The Comic Crush on Twitter and Instagram. You can follow Liz at Liz C. Jordan on Twitter. You can check out everything that's on The Crush at the moment. It is a weekly comics magazine, so every week there's new stuff for you to take a look at. We are going to get, I do have to apologize to the podcast listeners. There are podcast versions of this show that goes out, as indeed there are podcast versions of all the shows that go out. We are going to get those back on track and bring them up to date. We're just going to do, I think I'm just going to do a bumper drop of all the episodes so far. And then from then on, you'll get the video show on Saturday and the podcast show on a Sunday. So yeah, it's my fault. I'm sorry. I've been busy and it takes time to get this stuff done. Right now in the web store, which all helps keep the website going, we are having a weekend flash sale on indie and image books. So you guys can take a look at that. Tomorrow, we've got another video dropping. On Monday, we've got another video dropping, which is myself and Keith Isles from Home Media Minefield talking about Superman and Lois, the two trailers that have dropped. We're going to discuss what we hope the show's going to be and what we think it's going to be, and you guys can take a look at that. Liz and I will be back here next Saturday talking about this again. We don't know what we're going to be talking about, though. It's all to play for still. There's so much happening every week. It really is the highlight of my weekend to be able to watch the show and, of course, to come here and talk about it with you the next day, Liz. So thank you so much. Is there anything you want to add before we go this week? Any bits?
No, just like counting the days until next Friday, Paul. Cannot wait.
And of course, there will be a little break for a week or two whilst we kind of recuperate from the experience of having to see each other every week. You know,
it's a lot.
Distance, Liz, it's agony. But we'll be then back with the Falcon and the Winter Soldier show, which we will reveal the title of a bit later on, but that'll be coming soon. We'll be looking at week on week, just as we have been with this. I'm really looking forward to that show. I'm so looking forward to it. It looks great.
No, I can't even.
I was talking to our mutual friend Michael Adji today about that. Michael, by the way, has started a new YouTube channel called Comics Connoisseur. You should check that out. That's available on this very platform, and you can give that a look and subscribe to that. Please subscribe to us. Check out the Patreon. I was talking to Michael Adji today, and he was very excited to see Echo in the trailer, or what looks to be Echo in the trailer for Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I was really excited. I loved Echo from the Daredevil run way back then. And there's going to be quite a few characters that I wasn't expecting to see.
Yeah, I mean it's a left field one for for like a kind of Cap centric show.
Yeah, but again, I love that kind of remix attitude that Marvel have got to, or that the MCU have to Marvel history.
Right.
And I actually think it works very well. And the important thing it does is for people like me who aren't as well versed in Marvel, it gives me something to absorb and integrate. I can cling to that a lot easier than I can to 8 years worth of comics. But we will have suggestions again, sort of towards the end, about some more comics you can read for Scarlet, Witch, and Vision, and we will do it for Falcon and Winter Soldier, because I'm sure that my fine co-host there will have a ton of suggestions for you.
I shall.
Yes, and they're all going to be solid, guys, because you know, I can certainly vouch for Lizzie's knowledge and
taste. Great taste.
Yes. Well, sometimes.
Always.
I think there's a couple of things.
Impeccable.
I've had to call you on in the past.
Sure. Well, you know, you'll all be in for quite the treat, let me tell you.
But we'll talk more about that when that show comes on. Liz, thank you so much again. It's been wonderful. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Check out the Patreon up there. Help us make more videos. We've got loads more stuff planned for the year. I want to kind of bring all that stuff to fruition. So I can't do it without your help. Please check out the Patreon. Thanks so much, everyone. Catch you next time on The Crush. Bye, Liz.
Bye.